Thank you so much. I'm one of the unlisted speakers, so so it saves my life in the sense that I have only 10 minutes to be here with you, giving some ideas. I made a few stray notes as I was listening to the earlier speakers and going through the brochure of your program. And I thought that instead of talking about innovation and things of that sort, which many people already elaborated, I would rather give you some inputs on innovations in HR rather than in business practices, because HR also can be converted into a business practice. Quite some years ago, I gave this theory of 3H in HR. When we look at the H in HR, H stands for human. Now, what exactly is the human? Or what aspects of a human we need to emphasize in business environments? And I thought that there are at least three distinct things which we can focus on. The first H is the hands. Human beings work with their hands. So we have to focus on what the hands can do and how the hands can do better, more skillfully. The second is H stands for the head. Abilities, competencies with which all HR professionals swear by. And the third H, which is generally not included, is the heart, the feelings, the emotions, and those type of issues. You talked about khushi, happiness, is something which deals with the heart. Now, I think we have spent 2 minutes already. Yeah? Okay. What I find missing, in spite of all the debate about innovation and becoming more successful in organization and all these issues, one thing which is generally not considered as an important element of HR is the health. Health and well-being are, I think, the most neglected elements of HR. Way back in 1987, I published a paper, research paper, when I was with IIM. It was published in the IIM journal called Vikalpa. I think this is one of the most widely read research articles from any Indian scholar in the country. The title of that paper was Executive Health in an Oft Neglected Aspect of HR. Very recently, I was reading an American book, only last week, a very famous book by Pfeffer. It's a wonderful book, and I recommend to all, not to students, but all teachers and all those who are professionally in HR in their middle age, to read this book. The title is Dying for a Paycheck. The whole book has collected lots of information and cases from all over the world, from Japan, from China, from US, from UK, possibly not from India. And it tells us how, by virtue of our being associated with an organization, work organization, we lose health. In Japan, they developed a term, some of you might be familiar, it's a Japanese word called karoshe. Karoshe was a syndrome which Japanese industry found innovative finding, I must say, which indicated sudden death due to overwork in the organizational context. So, when we do a lot of things, we try to generate a lot of business, a lot of success. It has a cost. And the human cost generally is not taken into account. There are new issues on which people have been working. I have myself been working. Mercifully, I am still active as a researcher. So, we have something called workplace spirituality. You may call it an innovation, you may call it something new. Spirituality is a subject which has been studied in India for thousands of years in various languages, not necessarily English or French. So we are doing some work on workplace spiritualities. In fact, two of the research scholars who are associated with me presently at PDPU are both interested in this topic, and they're exploring how it can be linked to organizational performance, individual well-being and whatnot. We have issues like optimism. May sound very abstract, but let me share with you something very positive. A given individual is working for Hewlett-Packard, and he enrolled with me, he's an engineer, he enrolled with me for his doctorate work, and he was struggling to find, and somehow he found optimism, some research on optimism. And then I encouraged him to go ahead and see how optimism operates. He did a research on optimism as a predictor of success in taking over a new organization, mergers and acquisitions. And through his research, which was on 1,075 cases, he studied 41 organizations, indicating both where the mergers were failures and mergers were successful. And with advanced scientific statistical techniques, we could pinpoint that there is a predictability quotient of 90%, where you can predict that optimism, I mean the people in the organizations who are going to be taken over, if they're optimistic of the outcome actually comes. So these are new concepts, a little offbeat than the traditional abilities and competencies. Then there is another new term which is coming up in the research now on resilience in organizations. And resilience is supposed to be, the verbal meaning of resilience in the academic context is the organization's or the individual's ability to bounce back when you are down, when you are out, when you are not doing well. How do you come back? For example, we are reading in the newspaper all the wrong things about SBI, all the wrong things about Bank of Baroda and whatnot. But how do these organizations come back? How can they show that they are not what has been portrayed in newspaper reports? This is called resilience. I've done a lot of work, interestingly, for information of Mr. Rathi, that happiness as a concept has been researched. It's not something which is abstract. we have psychometric measures available, and if you have a Google search in the name of Dr. Yogesh Pahuja, he did his PhD with me on happiness. We developed a scale and it has been measured again across various types of organizations, and you can determine whether happiness has a place in the modern HR. There was a debate, some mention about what is innovation and what are these concepts in various grades and shades. Just to share a very, very mundane scientific information, one of our doctoral candidates from IIM Ahmedabad, long time back, did his PhD on what was called the PI motive, pioneering innovative motive. And there's a whole big book published. It's available in the IIM library. And Professor Pradeep Khandwala, my colleague in the area, was supervisor for this gentleman. But those of you who are interested in innovation, there are a lot of new ideas. Many times what happens is that we pick up ideas from foreign sources and we do not pick up ideas from Indian sources. The reason is very abstract and very simple, that mostly we study or teach our students through foreign books. And no American is going to talk about PI motive, so we really don't know whether PI motive ever existed, unless we have been a little more interested to find out what Indian scholars are doing. But by and large, after all is said and done, I think it is the individual in the organization who is supposed to be the torchbearer of the culture of the organization. And in spite of all the training and learning and unlearning and whatever we call it, it's not always that organizations are always doing what they were meant to be doing. I'll share with you some personal experience, and these experiences I've shared with my students in IIM also, so I thought it might be of some value to you. And this relates to banking industry, interestingly. In the olden days, now you have all this plastic money and all those things, but in the olden days we didn't have those type of things, and we had rupee travelers checks, TCs. And we had to do a lot of travel all over the country, all over the world, so we would take the TCs with us for our use in some other cities and towns. So I happened to go for some official work to Rourkela steel plant, which is in Orissa, and I wanted to encash some TCs, which I was carrying with me. The chief of personnel, those days HR was known as personnel, so the chief of personnel of the plant happened to be my old student, so he took me to the bank, and we were greeted and treated very well, so you have coffee, you have tea, sit, this, that. Yeah, about half an hour passed. I said, I want my money, please, if you don't mind. He said, we have to wait for a while. We waited 1 hour. The only reply was, you have to wait for a while. So we said, okay, now that the tea and snacks are over and we have to go back for work, the manager there said that, sir, I can't give you money because there is a power failure. They had some type of a union agreement, and the agreement was in relation to the fact that if there is a power failure, you can't carry out cash transactions. You can continue to work, you can entertain your customer, but the customer is not getting his money. So I came back without getting my traveler's checks encashed. And he said, tomorrow morning if you can come. I said, yes, I don't know with whom I am dealing. Am I dealing with the State Bank of India or with the Orissa Power Corporation or what? I don't know. Next morning, again I went with Arun, my student. And luckily, the Orissa Power Corporation obliged, and we had power, so I could get my money. Same bank, same transaction. I went to IIT Delhi, very small branch, very, very small. Just two persons, three persons sitting there. The cashier looked at me and said, so what do you want? I said, I got traveler's checks, and can you encash? He didn't look at them. He said, sir, sign, put New Delhi and the date. I'm at a distance. He's not looking at my document. He's not trying to verify whether it is correct, incorrect, good, bad, stolen, fraud, what. He only said, sir, what is the amount? I told him the amount. And there was a small counter like this. I went there, filled out the details. I went to the window, gave him that. He gave me the money. He already counted the money. It took me about 30 seconds. So, there's a lot of talk about retaining the customer, customer delight, customer happiness, training of employees, of managers, But how do you convert that into real behavior? So I think in all our innovations which we discuss, one important thing is to make a person understand, that is the insider to the organization, that the person who is standing before you, whom you classify as a customer or a client, is a human being with certain needs. Therefore, he is there. And the more you are appreciative of his or her needs, the more success you have in the organization. Thank you so much.